spirit abiding, a heart that's hopeful, decisions that are intentional. And now we have made a decision, and it's time to really try to have our solutions, to have good solutions, responses that are insightful, things that are a wise decision. Now, does it mean it's going to be perfectly, everything clearly work out? Maybe, hope so. But this is this part that's going to help you understand it's all right. When you make a decision and you start to implement something, you may have to make some adaptations to make sure it sustains and is effective. What's the first thing you do is you've made a decision. Now you have to kind of evaluate and decide, is this working? And you ask for input, try to stay positive and recognize that every time that you decide on a solution, it creates new challenges and new problems. That's just part of it. And that's an important step in this decision-making process and the solutions is to recognize that, okay, so now I'm riding my bicycle. If you don't mind that I'm using that same analogy, but that I'm riding my bicycle. So now I have to think about if it's raining, what do I do? So I have to wear a backpack that I bring with me. And then I have to lock my bicycle because it's pretty easy for them to get stolen on a university campus. But so we have to make sure of that. Oh, what about if I have a flat tire and different things? These are challenges that would be different than if I had bought a car and what I do. So that's all right. When you make a decision, you're going to have to face some new challenges in that process. It's like when you're moving to a new area. If you were deciding, well, I'm gonna go to a new area and live there for work, and that's great. It's a great decision. But a lot of times that first year is really kind of a rough adjustment to fit into that new situation. It's the right decision maybe, and you feel good about it. But now you have to find a new doctor or a new mechanic on your car, or you have to kind of get used and know your neighbors and stuff. And so there's always that time of adjustment when something's new. And so we have to adapt as needed. We have to recognize that we can't just live in the past and live in sort of the thought of what we expected and hoped. We have to be open to the fact that it's going to be different than we expected. It's all right. That's part of adapting and have that flexibility for change to occur. Taking risk is risky. You know that Thomas Edison, that he failed 1,000 times trying to make the light bulb work. And he was not upset. It was like he said, well, I just learned 1,000 ways that it doesn't work. So that's the kind of attitude that we have to have when we're in the process of solutions that are really insightful, things that you've learned. There have been times in our life when we moved to an area that I look back on and I think, was that the right decision? Well, at the time it made sense, and that was the right decision based on what we prayed about, what we thought about, and in that process. Then sometimes I look back and I think, but it was a great learning process. Even the failures that I've had, that I have to understand that it's really when you have failures that you learn. You start kind of improving and recognizing areas of weakness or problems or things you need to improve on with that. When everything's going just no problem and smoothly, there's not much learning that's happened. So don't think of these times when it's struggling and it's difficult and it's maybe failing or whatever to feel like, oh, this is just I'm no good and it's a difficult time. Yes, it's a difficult time, but it may have been the right time that God's going to use to really help you thrive and to become more and more who you are and what you're doing to accomplish these things. Now, the last step in this process of solutions is if you're leading an organization, if you're leading a nonprofit or a business or a church or whatever you're doing as you're leading that, always communicate, involve people in the process. That doesn't mean you just show up and say, what's everyone think? You need to do some work. You need to get things at about 80% sort of in process, but then involve people at that point and pull them in to discuss and to help give feedback for several reasons. But the main two is, one is that you get a better result. You know, the smartest person is not as smart as everyone together when you get that kind of feedback. And then the second part of that is that people really feel a part of things and are committed to following your leadership. So as we talk about kind of key leadership skills during a pandemic, these are the kinds of things is that we have to learn how to make good decisions, and we have to have a goal of solutions that are really insightful, because that leads us to our last area, which is insightful, inspirational leadership.